Hey there, good morning. My name is Bob Kobeck, and I'm pleased to be here with my buddy Jim Madrid, founder and CEO of Advanced Sports Technology, Inc. Now, let me just tell you, don't let that fool you because Jim is one of the most positive people you'll ever meet. And he's got a lot of reasons to be positive, and I'm sure he'll share those with you. And I know we all have a lot of reasons not to be a positive thinker, but man, this guy, he inspires me every time we get a chance. So be sure that when you get time, you can pull this video back up and get to his website, take a look at it. In the meantime, let me just say hello to Mr. Jim Madrid. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Bob. Nice to see you. Been a
Nice to
while.
see you too. Yeah, it has been. And as you just pointed out, we're going to be getting together here in about a month at the GNEX conference in San Diego.
Yeah, the Hotel Del Coronado. Great
Oh,
place.
boy, I love that. I love that
Oh
place.
man, so do I. We went down there and did the site inspection a few months ago. And wow, it's been a while since I've been there. And they've added on new stuff and they remodeled some of the rooms. It's great, but it's still that nice historic old hotel. It's a great place.
Old haunted hotel.
Right, haunted, right? Some like it hot hotel.
Yeah, it's yeah, that's an interesting story about the young lady that hung herself. And my wife and I were there. Our wedding anniversary is coincidentally Halloween.
Well, really?
We were there a couple of years ago on Halloween, and we're positive we were visited by that specter.
So cool.
It's
It's going to
cool.
be a great conference. Yeah, it's going to be a great one.
Yeah, and you usually moderate that. Is that your
Yep,
role?
I'm the MC of that. 13, going on 14 years, Bob.
Wow. Well,
14 years we've been doing that.
and guess what that just did? That just told me exactly when we met.
Yeah, that's exactly when we met.
We
Yeah.
met at the first
Wow.
one, I think. Was it
Yeah.
Cancun? First one?
No, it was Bahamas. Did you go to that one? The second
No,
one was Cancun.
it would have been the second one when we
Yeah.
met. So
Yeah.
13 years.
13 years ago.
Yeah. And you've been to Indianapolis a couple of times. You visited here, and we went to Iaria's Italian, and we went to St. Elmo's.
Yes, we did, man. That was a good dinner. I still remember that dinner. That was a good one. And it wasn't just the food, it was also the wine you picked out too that night.
Oh, hell, I'm accused of being a snob. I'll take it.
I'll take it too. I'll hang out with you. If you want to be that wine snob, be the wine snob because it was
Yeah.
good.
I
It was
love that.
very good.
Yeah. So Jim, I kind of described you as a positive thinker, a positive guy, and a positive doer. You've made a career out of that. Not, I think you must have had some sort of an epiphany years ago and said, you know what, it's not about the money, and you're doing it for the passion. And coincidentally, you're doing fine with the money. Does that kind of sort of describe it?
Yeah, it's funny you put it that way. I've never really thought about that epiphany part, but it did come. I was exposed to, I guess, this kind of thinking. Number one, from my father. He was the most optimistic, positive person ever. In the face of adversity, he still had, a smile on his face, and something's going to happen. It's going to be good. I'll give an example. He was 86 years old. Lives near me at the time. I got a phone message from him, and he left the message saying, "Son, I've been in an accident. I'm okay. Give me a call." So I called him up and I said, "What happened?" And this is what he said. He didn't say, "Hey, some son of a gun stopped and I ran into him." He wasn't looking what he was. No, he didn't. He goes, "James, I met some of the nicest people today." I went, "Wait, what?" That's what happened to him. I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, the guy I rear-ended, he was so understanding and so nice. I mean, he didn't yell, scream. He was just really nice to me, make sure I was okay." And he goes, "And the cop that gave him a ticket, the guy that totaled his car, I mean, that was him. He was the ultimate optimist." And I think what I've coined now is he was a realistic optimist. You know, it was always thinking about, the goodness, about why we're on earth, everything else. And then when I went to high school, I got introduced to this kind of education that I became passionate about by my football coach, guy named Lou Tice. He started a company back in 1971 called the Pacific Institute out of Seattle, Washington. And I went at the time. I was working at Nordstrom all through high school, and then after I graduated, and continued to work at Nordstrom. And lo and behold, my mother had worked at Nordstrom, so she got Lou in there to do his thing there, and I got exposed to a more formalized, uh, um, seminar and workshop. Again, all about cognitive psychology and positive psychology, and then. In management, I used it at Nordstrom, and then I went into the timeshare business, and I graduated into that, became a project director for a couple of sites, and again, in came Lou again. We brought him in, and so I got the third phase of it, and then I went on my merry way, and so did Lou. And in 1992, I decided that's when you just brought that up was. The epiphany happened. I was living in Palm Springs. I just got divorced. I had my two sons. I had my two oldest boys, and my son Chase and Jamie and Jeremy. And I was working for a guy named Sonny Bono in Palm Springs. Ran all the different events that came to town. And the Sonny Bono, yeah, he was the mayor. Yeah, of Sonny and Cher. And so
he was in a band.
Yeah, he was in a band.
I always remember him from being in Congress.
Yeah, he was incredible, super smart too. I mean, super smart. And then I was doing a lot there, and my son, one of my sons came to me one time and said, "Dad, sure are doing a lot of partying." And I went, "Yeah, I think I am." And so I called up Lou, and Lou, I was living in Palm Springs. Lou was in Seattle, and he said, "Get your ass up here." And I did. And I went to work for him and became his #1 implementer and project director for him. And then in 1996, I went out on my own. But that was the epiphany, was back about 1992, Bob, when that happened. So what kind of started out as a personal interest for me became a professional passion. I'm self-taught. I don't have any degrees whatsoever. I'm on the board at Texas Christian University, the Chancellor's Advisory Board, I might add. I've been offered adjunct professorship at some universities. I probably will do that, but it's been, I got to go back to my roots, and that was, my father told me years ago, anything's possible, son, as long as you put some effort to it and you're passionate about it. And that's what I've built my company around. And anything is possible. And next thing you know, here I am, and I'm a certified applied practitioner of positive psychology out of the University of Pennsylvania. A guy named Dr. Martin Seligman. I got introduced to him in 1994, and I just fell in love with his work, along with many other professors that I've had the chance to meet. And research psychologist, neuroscientist, understand how the brain is connected to performance, and just how the way we think and are based on our old habits, attitudes, and beliefs, kind of like your present thoughts determine your future. And I'd rather have positive future thoughts, instead of negative ones.
So I will tell you that I had a similar epiphany, and mine came from a slightly different angle. Well, you would expect that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I was always concerned, really deeply concerned, to the point of being very bothered by the fact that I didn't have money.
Yeah.
And it drove me in a not positive, healthy way at all. To where,
Mm-hmm.
it cost me a family. And my epiphany happened right after that, when I said, wait a minute, you are angst about the wrong things entirely. you're all focused on career, you're focused on the money. And I think I may have seen that quote where somebody said, what if it's not all about the hokey pokey? You know, that quote.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of carried that over. So wait a minute, what if it's not really about the money? And that anxiety left me almost that day. I mean, it was a wonderful feeling where I was like, what is the worst thing that could happen to me? You know, I mean,
There you go.
I could end up
There
on
you go.
I could end up on the streets, which by the way I did. And, you know, and all the things that could happen, son of a gun, they happened. Like I could control all of that. But really, the only thing I could control was what's up here.
That's right. 5 inches between your ears. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you want to talk about your personal struggle here, or you want to move past
Well,
it?
sure.
Because it drove your attitude drove an awful lot of the results here.
Yeah, it did. What he's talking about is that, first off, a little background about myself and my company. When Bob, you and I first met, all I was doing strictly corporate improvement. I don't want to say org development. I want to say organizational improvement. And my philosophy back then was, well, if you want to improve your company, don't you think you need to improve your most, important asset, and that's your people? And most of them thought, well, yeah, let's get them more, product knowledge, let's get them sales training, let's get them leadership development, blah, blah, blah. Right. Okay. I agree with that. But even before that, don't you think you need to improve the way they think about themselves, the way they think about their coworkers, the way they think about, their direct manager, the way they think about the leadership of the company, the way they think about the vision and the purpose of the company. And right now, that's a big deal. And as we put in a process and we start with a personal development, and which is connected to professional development, which is connected to the company's organizational development, improvement. So if we want to improve that, those are kind of the steps I believe, and over my 30 plus years of working with some Fortune 500 companies, it's proven that, that's the way it really does help. And I forget what year it was, probably 10, 12 years ago when the book, The Secret, came out. Great book, great idea, everything else. But I was in front of a bunch of HR people from, it's probably about 150, top HR executives. And first off, I told them that I'm not here to get any work from you. I'm not here trying to pitch you to hire me, because after what I have to say, you probably won't want to hire me. So they laughed. And I said, you're all, if you remember, Bob, what was
the truth.
Right. And
You
what's
were
funny
telling them
is,
the truth, weren't you? They really were going to hire you.
No, I knew it. So, and I wasn't there to get their business. I was there to educate them, is basically what I was trying to do. And, I looked at these E words over the last, 30 years. First one was re-engineering the corporation, right? Remember that book, Re-engineering the Organization. And the author on that book said, I forgot one thing, the human element. Then the next thing was employee empowerment, right? And how did that work out for a lot of people? Because if you didn't believe in your people, you sure as hell weren't going to empower them. You're going, okay, I'll do it because that's the newest thing, so we'll go ahead. But they're going to screw up. I know they will, right? And of course they did. And then the next one was, which is now we're in, enthralled in, and that is employee engagement, the newest E word, right? And I look at all these books and everything that came out about employee engagement, and what was it all about? Was, even, what do they call it? Team building workshops and team building, excursions and stuff. Yeah, they're a fun day. Yeah, good, Bob. Look, we get to do this, and this team building thing. We get to go hang out down on a boat someplace and do whatever. But at the end of the day, I come back and I still don't like my manager. I still don't like the way the company's heading. But you and I sure had a lot of fun, and we got paid for that day off, right? And I told these executives that, what are you giving them? A gift card? I heard one company, Bob, and it was in our industry, in the timeshare industry. It was a big hotel chain, resort chain, and they were given a big presentation. And there was three big companies, I won't name them, but three big companies, and one talked about employee surveys, and you and I could talk about those all day long, can't we? And
we happen to have a very good one, yes.
do, and that one, right? So I said, well, I said, who administered the the survey? And they said, well, we did, the company itself. I said, so you came up with it, and it was just an in-house deal? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, what was your engagement rate? And they said, oh, it was about 30%. And I said, oh, great. I said, because and then so only 30% of your entire organization, 120,000 people, or excuse me, tens of thousands of people nationwide. Yeah, 30%. I don't believe in that. I think, you and I, we had over 70% response, didn't we, when we did yours? And that's a pretty good indicator. Then the next thing, this other guy gets up there and says, yeah, we ran this for a year, this incentive, and if you were engaged by these measurement tools, blah, 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 and they showed a 5-minute video of the event that they went to Hawaii or someplace, wherever they went. And I just cracked up on that, right? And I go, so how many people did you take? And they said, well, 100 plus their guest or, the significant other. I go, well, how many employees do you have? The guy goes, 15,000, a little over 15,000 employees. So for a year, you did this whole program and only 100 of them were engaged. So I just go, wait a minute, how does that make sense, right? Only 100 of them were engaged, this whole year-long thing with all the posters in the back room and all that stuff. And then I said to the ladies and the men in the room, and I said, how many of you have heard of the Book of the Secret? And every hand went up. And I said, well, look, who's buying that book are your employees. So what does that tell you? I think they want more than a gift card or a trip, because the next time you got to up that and, the gift or the carrot, you got to make it a bigger carrot. And so I go, doesn't that tell you something, that your people are buying that book? Millions and millions of people are buying that book, and you want to give them a gift card to Best Buy? Give me a break. And you think that's, they're going to be engaged.
Can I interject here?
Sure.
One of the things that we're finding on the employee engagement part is that employers go from 0 to engagement.
Right.
And there's no measurement in between, which gets us back to that employee survey and the employee survey itself. What we're finding is that it's changed from where we were at one time surveying our employees to find out whether or not they were good enough to work for us.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're surveying employees to find out whether or not we're good enough for them to work for us. And so the whole thing has flipped to now where if you're going to go from 0 to engagement, you got to have that thing in the middle that says, what are we going to do to engage them?
Right.
To your point, I mean, gift cards.
And there you go.
Nice. Gift cards.
Right.
Nice. I'd rather have
so,
money.
Right. And so, and our process is starting with personal development first, personal improvement of themselves, the way they think about themselves, their health, their relationships, their finances, their career, all those things. And, and then we tie it into professional development, tie it into the organization. That 3-step process is done in a 2-day workshop. And it obviously, I built my reputation on the results, and that's what our company. But going back to how I started AST, Advanced Sports, during those workshops, inevitably, parents would come up and say, do you do this for kids? Well, as you know, Bob, I've got 5 kids. And I've raised all 5 on that, but all the coaching that I've done of their different sports, basketball, soccer, and baseball, they would, we had the Bad News Bears teams and we would win, and it was funny because I did all this. Yeah.
Okay,
and so,
no, wait a minute, 5
sure.
kids. Okay,
5 kids.
That means Italian Catholic.
Right. Spot on. Exactly. And
How do
people
I
go, well,
know
wait a
that?
minute.
I wonder,
Yeah.
wonder how I know
Pe-
that.
People go, well, how does Madrid sound Italian? Well, I'm half Spanish, half Italian. My mother's last name was Zagata. That was her maiden name,
Yeah,
Zagata.
mine was Colza.
Yeah, there you go. So, so Quebec, oh, that sounds Italian.
Yeah.
So anyways, we, in 2005, we got a lot of requests. And so in 2005, we scaled down our core curriculum called the 10 Principles of Mental Fitness down to the 7 Fundamentals of Mental Fitness. And we started out as mental toughness, but I came to realize, well, you can't be physically tough unless you're physically fit. And that's the same thing with the mental side of it, right? And so I built that up, not for sports, but thought, man, grade schools and schools would love this curriculum. High schools would love this curriculum because it's teaching them, self-esteem, confidence, resiliency, setting goals, why goals work, not just how to set a goal and how to write a goal, but why do goal setting, what is positive self-talk all about? Why is visualization and mindfulness and all those things that help these kids focus and be resilient? And we thought, well, yeah, the schools, they saw no money in it. Basically, that was it, right? So it sat on the shelf. And then in 2012, I was asked back to the Pacific Institute because I left Lou in 1996, went out on my own, did pretty good. And then in 2011, Lou took sick with ALS. And so in the 40 some years of his existence of his business, they've never asked anybody back. And not only did they ask me back, but they asked me to come back, be the face of the company, along with that to help run the company. I did that for about 2 years. Unfortunately, Lou passed away. Lou was Pete Carroll from the Seattle Seahawks. He was his coach, and all through the USC days. And so he had a great relationship because the office was up in Seattle. Pete Carroll was there with the Seattle Seahawks. And Pete wanted to do off of his book that the Pacific Institute helped write called Win Forever. And he wanted to do an online course. And so I brushed off the 7 fundamentals and helped write and script the Pete Carroll's Win Forever program. So I got to meet Pete, do a lot of work with him. Excuse me. And then we, the same time, the Paul Allen owned the Seattle Seahawks, and he also was part owner of the Seattle Sounders, which was the professional MLS soccer team in Seattle. Well, I happen to have a player that I worked with on the side back in 2000 named Brad Evans. And so Brad heard that I was in town. So I got with him. He told the head coach, which was Ziggy Schmid, the winningest coach in MLS. And Ziggy hired me. And then the owner of the Sounders, the other owner, the majority owner, was a guy named Adrian Hanauer. Adrian said, I like what you're doing, because we went on to win MLS Cups and things. And he said, well, look, what are you up to? And I said, well, I got this youth program. So he kind of encouraged me and helped me and advised me to start advanced sports technology. So our goal is that we looked at youth sports today. And back in 2013, 14, it was a $10 billion a year industry. Today, it's scratching 20 billion. And they say in the next 2 to 3 years will be well over $40 billion. And it's primarily driven by the high cost of college. And so these parents, as we've seen in the college, admission scandal that happened a couple of years ago with Rick Singer, look what the heights of these parents are willing to do. $500,000 they paid this guy to get their daughter or son into college. $500,000. Well, what about those people that don't have that kind of money and the rising costs? Well, by God, you're going to get a college scholarship to go to a good 4-year school, because we can't afford to send you to a 4-year school. So now it's driven by that, and that's exactly what I see. Every one of these athletic clubs has got a university or college program to help these kids, apply and show off their skills and talents to a university, and hopefully, they'll get picked up with a scholarship. So we saw that through the window of sports, we could get our curriculum in, because I always call them who said's. Well, who said that the 7 fundamentals of mental fitness is any good? Oh, well, Brad Evans did, the Seattle Sounders do, Ziggy Schmidt does. It goes into basketball. Byron Scott's from the Lakers is on our board. We've got NFL players that we continue to work with.
Hey,
We've
by
got,
the way, Byron Scott was with the Pacers before he was with the Lakers.
No, he was with the Lakers first, then went to the Pacers.
Oh, okay. Just
Yeah.
making
Then he
it
was,
clear.
yeah. And by the way, one of my favorite teams is the Pacers. So,
Good.
well, when I was down there that time with the Boys and Girls Club, when I was there and we went out to dinner, we got to go. We had our meeting there at the arena at what's the
Less than probably Conseco.
Yeah. So we had the
No,
meetings
it's
there. Yeah. And so they were out there practicing, and that's when Larry Bird was there and stuff. And so we got to go down the floor and watch them practice and stuff. It was pretty cool. So from there, we kind of launched and we tested out some things on a small soccer club up in Seattle. And we just had, paper copies of questions and worksheets and stuff like that. And when we asked these kids to read or write, man, every head went down. These are age 13 to 18-year-olds. We had about 80 kids in the room, and we just said, wow, we're on to something here. And so we've gone on right now we're the official mental fitness program for Cal South, which is the governing body for soccer in Southern California. We're in a lot of different high schools around the country, college campuses. We're on a lot of those. We look to put in a director of mental fitness in all these youth clubs. And the biggest thing that we saw when it came to sports, and I know it, is like, well, what percentage of sports do you think is mental, Bob? What would you say? What percentage of sports, any sport, is mental?
Well, if I judge it by golf, I would say 80%.
Okay, so 80%. I said that to the athletic director at Texas A&M a couple of months ago. We had a meeting there, and he goes, wait a minute. He answered it just like you just said. But he stopped me midway and he says, wait a minute. I just told you that 80% of the game is mental. Yet ask me how much I spend on the mental side. And then he goes, like, less than 1%. I said, but why is that? He said, basically, where do I go for that? There's sports psychologists out there, and they're great and they're needed. But that's like a coach saying, Bob, you're on my team, and I notice you've got some issues. Maybe something's going on personally in your life, and I think you need to go see the sports psych guy. Okay, and is
that why I'll never be good at golf?
Probably because you've got these lot of issues, Bob. So, but and I would say that's about 80% of the sports psychology that's out there. And trust me, I'm not knocking them whatsoever, because they are truly needed and they truly do a fantastic job. And we've got some on our staff. But the resource, where does a coach go? A youth coach, where do they go? First off, they're barely making any ends meet to be a coach to begin with. And some of them on the competitive level, yes, they are getting paid. They're not making their life fortune, nor are they going to retire on that. And so when I looked at the market in that industry, it was either personality driven, and ours is not personality driven by Jim Madrid. It's more driven by the content and the concepts and the process that we teach, because we have a process. And we don't need them to keep coming back to us. But what we want to do is keep pushing stuff out to them resource-wise, so that they have a resource to go in a very practical way and not in a clinical way. And I think that's where the separation comes from, is here's a youth coach that's coaching 14-year-old girls, and you're going to put him or her into a clinical background, and they've got enough to do to begin with. And that's been probably the biggest pushback, if there's been any, until they see and experience our curriculum and the process. They think it's that. Well, where am I going to find time to do this? How am I going to implement this? I don't have a degree in psychology. Do I have to have that? And a lot of the other companies, that's their approach, is very clinical. The second one is I saw that it was a lot of them are online only. And there's some good in that. There's some good book. But if you get a team, and as we know on Zoom, if you've done a big class on Zoom, it could be a pain in the butt. You know, you get one of these. You're sitting there talking, and then you have somebody go like this. Then they go like, you know, something like they put themselves on mute, or they go away for a while, or they put themselves on mute and they're talking to somebody in the background. You're like that, you know, and it's just distraction. There is no group dynamic that can really take place because we're not next to each other. And you and I have talked about this in the past. We get told we're working for a company, let's say, and we get told we got to go to a 2-day workshop. And what's our self-talk? Are you kidding me? Not one of these again. And based on what? Past experiences, right? And we sit there and bad rap the whole thing, right? We get in there and you're the biggest negative person there is when it comes to going to something like this. And we walk in the room and we sit in the back row. We get in the back row next to the door in case we want to exit stage left, right? And all of a sudden, an hour or two into it, I see you really getting into this. Like you're writing, you're paying attention. I'm trying to bug you. I'm trying to joke with you, and you're kind of brushing me off. Well, see, you don't get that when you're in Zoom. And so you don't get that when you're just by yourself and the coach tells everybody, go through chapter 1, everybody by themselves, okay? You just don't get that on an online deal. That the take isn't as, you know, as deep as it is when you're collectively together. So ours is more of a blended, and right now what we're doing is live workshops that we certify the coaches in the club, and we keep on them and we evaluate them that they're getting the principles and the concepts and the fundamentals correct. And then we can, you know, assess their students afterwards to make sure that they understood the concepts that were taught. And so ours is that we go inside the club and we help their personnel to develop and distribute the, you know, and facilitate the curriculum. They're with the players all the time, not us. And if you depend on us, then you're going to just keep on paying somebody. And that's how most of the other companies are set up. So we've done a pretty good job. We've probably put over the last 5-6 years on kind of like just a test, Bob, not really a full blown. And I wouldn't even say it was a side hustle. It was a side hobby. And all of a sudden it consumed me. And just before the pandemic, we were getting ready to bring some investment capital in and really blow the thing open and expand, not as a startup, but as expansion. And the pandemic hit. Of course, we all know what happened. It was lockdown. My audiences on Zoom and Teams and all the other different platforms was well over 70,000 people. And it was just the right thing to do. We didn't charge. We did workshops online. We were all over the world with it, and we just thought it would be the right thing to do. Now, unfortunately and fortunately, we have some solutions to preventing mental health issues, especially of the scar tissue that not only kids, but us as adults are feeling after that isolationism and everything else. The social, stuff, the economics of what's going on in our world today, all those kind of things right now. People are, the National Mental Health Hotline, Bob, in May of 2020, saw a 1,000% increase in daily calls. 1,000%. That has tapered off to probably about, I think it was, the last I read was like about 60% more. And that's incredible. And a lot of our clinical professionals that we deal with and advise us, they're slammed. They're slammed. And a lot of them said, if these kids had gone through your program, they'd be, we wouldn't be seeing over half of these kids. Because you talked about angst and anxiety is caused by fear. And what are we looking at was the fear of the unknown for these kids. So we've done a lot there. We're measuring both not only the performance on the field of play, but in the classroom and at home. And it's working.
We have, right now today, our political atmosphere. I don't care where you are in the spectrum.
Right, I agree. Yep.
The whole thing dwells on fear. I mean,
it does, doesn't it?
The media, if it bleeds, it leads, and that is true. Whether we're talking about whatever angle you're coming from an angle of pitching.
That's right. That's right. We had an administration, and the other side, a few years back was blah, 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 blah. Now we got a new administration, and now the other side is echoing what they were saying back then. It's just like, wait, didn't you guys say that wasn't fair back then, but now it's okay? Oh, now it's not okay, but it was okay back then. It's like, wait, stop. My father said,
they're not, they're really not fooling anybody, because I remember 50 years ago, I remember the people that invented the sale of timeshare. I mean, I knew this. They came out of Indianapolis, and I knew them well. And one of the things that they captured, they got it from the manufactured housing group, and that was fear and greed. Those are the two elements of that sale.
Yeah.
You buy today because you can't come back tomorrow.
Right. Oh God, Thousand Trails. That was us.
And you're going to make a lot of money on this too.
Right.
So the fear and the greed as a part of the emotions of stirring up a sale hasn't changed much, at least not for me. I watch them both, and as you know, I get a little hot on Facebook.
Yeah.
I think you've even done this to me a couple of times, and fair enough. The point
but we both got caught up in that, Bob. We both got caught up in that and reading that, and therein lies the problem today. Is we're getting our news off of social media, and so then just think about what the dinner table talk is at home and what these kids are listening to.
That's where I was just going to go.
Yep, and what they're listening to, and these poor kids. If there's one thing when a parent gets a hold of us and they want help, when my team when they ask what's the number one thing that they need help in, and the number one issue that keeps coming up is confidence. And their confidence is shaken right now because they are, I'll give you an example. You see that football behind me right there, that football? I've got a player for Washington State University. He is the place kicker. And when last year, before the season started last year, or right after the season, he was 50%. He was 2 for 4 field goal, extra points he nails. But when he had to go in for a field goal, and this is what he told me, I go, so what's going on? He said, Mr. Madrid, I am so excited to go in. I love this game. I've been playing it my entire life. I love it. This is my field. I love this. But as soon as I'm called in to kick a field goal, he said, as soon as I put my foot on the field, my thinking goes, I hope I don't miss. I hope I don't screw up. I hope I don't make a mistake. And that's wrong thinking. Okay. So you can think about the anxiety that he gets as he's walking on the field to get ready. And then when the other coach, the opposing coach, takes a timeout to freeze them, that's exactly what's happening. It's giving them time to think about what they hope they don't screw up. He ended up 14 out of 17 attempts this year. That football happens to be, in one game, he broke his own personal record. That football came when he broke the school record for the longest field goal, which is 58 yards, I think it was. Not bad. But it's turned around to right thinking. And I think what has happened to, it's just human nature to go to the negative side. Why? I don't know. But, because I think, like you just said, the media just constantly feeds negativity. If you watch the local news in Indianapolis or here in LA, at the very end of it, I mean, they give you, what is it, 28 minutes worth of negative news, right? And the very end, they typically close with something good. And that's what, a 30-second segment. It's like, what? It's like, where is that? I was just talking to.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Right. And so I was talking to somebody, and I can't remember, maybe you remember it, Bob. It was, I don't know, probably 10, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, where the city of Detroit was just, engulfed in all this, crime, ridden city, remember? And then somebody came up with the 1 day of prayer. And they did that 1 day of prayer, Bob. And the crime on that, it was a 2 day or something like that, crime went down significantly. And, it's like, well, okay, why not? I mean, why can't we be like that all the time? So, and that's what's helped me in my little personal journey this past, 6, 7, 8 months, is we've created an environment around here that is uplifting. It's positive. It's optimistic. And when you ask me about my personal journey, do you mind if I talk about that now?
We got to be mindful of time, but sure.
Okay. So on April 1st, I was diagnosed with this past year with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And, that shocked us. My father passed away in 2008 of pancreatic cancer, 6 months after he was diagnosed with it. I woke up on April 1st, coughing up stuff that you shouldn't be coughing up, and off to the hospital we went. They did CT scans, hit me with a battery of tests. And actually it was April 2nd that they told me that it was, my wife and I was sitting in the hospital, that it was stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And shocked us pretty good. We cried, and then we had to put the kids all on the speakerphone and let them in on what was going on. Well, I've got 4 boys and a daughter. The youngest is 21 years old. In fact, in a month, he'll be 22. My daughter is 25. My son Chase is 35. My twin boys, identical twin boys, they're 46. All of them were on the phone. And I heard my daughter, who stole my heart years ago, of course, and I heard her go, "Oh no," and she started crying. And my wife automatically said to all the kids, "Today's about crying. Tomorrow we go to work to support your father to beat this thing." And questions were asked and so on. And then my wife said, before we hung up on that call, all this is going to do is give us stronger legs for bigger strides. I spent a weekend in the hospital, and I had a choice, Bob. I could take it as a death sentence or an opportunity to triumph. And I took the latter, opportunity to triumph. I thought about it as I laid there by myself in the hospital. Every 6 hours, they were coming to draw blood. And I mean, midnight, boom, 6 a.m. in the morning, boom, then I'm there with my own thoughts. I start thinking about, if this is going to take me down, and those negative thoughts start to happen. And I was in my own room, and I just yelled out to myself. I yelled it out, and that is, stop it. That's bullshit. That's not going to happen to me. And I had to curb that negative self-talk and turn it into positive self-talk. I thought about it, and I thought, I'm a faith. I've got a lot of faith, and I just thought, well, God's give me a test and see if I really am as mentally tough as I preach, And I thought about it, and I thought, well, I have this very unique opportunity that a lot of people don't get, and there's a lot of people that have got it. And the opportunity was the opportunity to battle for my life, and that's what I did. And I had the love and support of my family and friends, mindfulness, everything I teach We did everything and started right away. By the time I got home, if you can see behind me, that one there, it said, that poster right there, Darcy had those made, and it said, it's got a picture of me going like this, looking very brilliant, saying, and it says good vibes only. The other one, that one there, it says hashtag Team Madrid. Those were out in the front yard, and when I come in the house, those were up on the mantle in the living room. And we just kind of went to work on it. And 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night, I do mindfulness, continue to do that. We did that for 4 weeks. I've seen 5 oncologists. And the 4th week, a lot of prayer, a lot of, mindfulness, a lot of visualization, positive self-talk, setting out those goals of what I wanted to crush so I could beat this thing spiritually, holistically, homeopathically, and love and support. Those are 4 things, 4 weeks on. Spiritually, homeopath, eating the right foods, exercise, and then love and support that I had. At first, I didn't want to tell anybody, but then it started to get out, and the support was overwhelming. I was in church one day, and one Sunday, and just Darcy and I, my wife and I just started bawling. And she said, "Are you okay? Do we need?" I said, "I'm just overwhelmed with the love and support." I had lost 25 pounds. I was down to 121 pounds from about 140, 150. It white as a ghost. I started losing my voice, and I can't do that. That's my moneymaker, baby. Then the beginning of the 4th week, everything seemed to happen on Friday, and on Monday of the 4th week, endoscopy procedure. And on the way there, one of my sons was telling Jamie, I said, they're not going to find what they're looking for. He said, "What do you mean, Dad?" And I said, "Well, look at all the work everything that we put in 30 minutes in the morning, and I'm laying on a mat doing mindfulness, and my family and friends over and say, when are you going to do that? I want to be there for you." And there, it's in the living room of our house, the mat is, because who uses the living room anymore? Right down the middle, we took the coffee table out, and I put my mindfulness pad down there, and I hook up, and we've got all these different things that goes on, the tone, the sound bowls, all that. We put it all to work. And then when I had that procedure on that Monday, Bob, I was out of it in a recovery room, and my son asked the doctor, came in and said, "How'd it go?" "I don't know what they're looking for, but your dad sure looks healthy to me." All I did was visualize a beautiful, pink, healthy, clean pancreas. The same with my liver, the same thing with my lung. That's where the 3 areas they had identified it was at. That following Friday, we saw another oncologist, and he concurred with what the other doctors had said, right? And I'm at City of Hope is where I landed with Dr. Lim, City of Hope, great place, unbelievable. And so that doctor is just going, "No, there's just something weird I don't get." So he did a tissue of origin test, and then we get in the car. Marcy and I were driving home, and calls and said, "Scheduling departments Friday, they were starting with the chemotherapy all the way." This was back in May, and starting chemo once a week through the month of July. We got home, and phone call, and this time it's Dr. Lim. And he said, "Where's Darcy?" And I said, "Let me get her." So we put him on speakerphone. He said, "You guys, good news. It's not pancreatic cancer. No chemo, it's cancer. Yes, there's still parts in my, at that time, there was some, cancer in my pancreas and liver, but the origin was my lung. So it's non-small cell lung cancer. But what they're scratching their heads about, Bob, is that they're saying, we don't know what you did or how you did it, but we want to know because you went from stage 4, my CAV, whatever it's called, for your pancreas, normally is like 30. Mine was 40,000 plus. Along with that, the image of my pancreas looked like there was a big blob of mud in my pancreas. You can't see that anymore. And they couldn't see that then. And to me, that was the power of prayer, power of positive thinking, and the power of love and support that I had.
So in the interest of time,
Yep.
Because we want people to watch this front to back.
Right.
One of the things about the BobCast that if you're a regular watcher, you would know this, but that is that we talk about the charity of choice of the guest. And I typically am the first contributor from this segment. So when you're ready, I will contribute $50 to your foundation that is brand new. And the reason that the slide says pending is because we know that the website will be up later today, that today being Monday, January 30th, or tomorrow, the 31st. So Jim, just give us 5 minutes or so on that.
Sure. First off, the latest scans on me right now is 50% cancer is gone in my lung, close to 50% of the cancer in my pancreas and liver are gone. And I continue to get better, going in the right direction. I've started to gain weight now. I'm back playing basketball twice a week. Next week I started on a soccer team again. So
you're back to buying green bananas.
Right, exactly. And so, well put, Bob. So one of the things that we got asked when we've been talking about it, because was I go around the world and I see, especially in youth sports, where team fees are like $3,000 a year plus travel, plus meals, plus hotels and all that kind of stuff. I see that youth sports has turned into. But what about these kids in these underserved areas that are talented and don't have a chance to be on those teams? We want to get our education to them. So a foundation called the Goodness Beyond Self Foundation. Little did I know there's a big difference between a foundation and just a plain old charity. So foundations give away money. We want to give away money, and we want to give away curriculum for sports, but for any kind of student that we in this education, because we've seen the improvement in the classroom based on this. So the Goodness Beyond Self, the website is goodnessbeyondself.org, goodnessbeyondself.org, and we should have that up. We just formed at the beginning of the year, or at the end of last year, we just formed it in December, got all the IRS and everything approved, and we are a 501c3 now, and we want to go out to some of these underserved markets and help kids that are talented and just don't have that opportunity to get out there. And talented, not just in sports, but academically and other things, but they have a chance that we can get them into a college, and go on. And it doesn't have to be the high-end, universities around, but, to get them into a community college as a start. There's nothing wrong with that. We have been so sold down the road that you've got to go to a 4-year and get a degree. It's kind of showing what's happening with that. And I think we're starting to see a turn.
Largest institute of higher education in the state of Indiana is not IU or Purdue, but it's Indiana Vocational Technical College.
Yeah, and why not they? What's wrong with that?
Keeps growing. It's growing.
Yeah, which is great. And so we've, when I talk about that Orange Lou, excuse me, CalU University, California University, Lutheran is in Calabasas. They asked me just before the pandemic to do a be an adjunct professor there and put my class through it. I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. I really want to do that, but we're looking now to put it in high schools, school seniors. We want to get it into high school so that gets them ready for whatever they go next, whether it's on the college or technical school, whatever it may be, that we're getting them ready for life outside of high school, and then getting them ready for college. And the same thing for we're working right now with Texas Christian University, TCU, and working with them. We have their sports psych department doing research and creating more content for us. So all of our content is science-based, curriculum. And put
something
what?
must have worked. Something must have worked for TCU this past year. Guaranteed. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, what a run they had, and they're just it's an incredible campus. The school is incredible. Victor Boschini, the chancellor, is been there for, I don't know, 20 years, and this guy is Mr. Energizing Bunny, man. He is on the go all the time. The football team, the whole they do a great job. The business school works with all the athletes because as soon as that NIL came available, July of 2021, the business school identified 525 new business owners, 525 athletes owners that probably have no idea. They went and the business school opened an office inside the athletic department to help these kids make sure that they're compliant and paying their taxes, that they're making money. It's an incredible university.
Well, I will say that this hour and change has blown by very quickly, my friend. What a joy. Thank you.